growing one restaurant, two restaurants, four restaurants, eight restaurants, that it takes a tremendous amount. And bottom line, it takes people, and it takes good systems, and it takes good, you know, supply chain. It takes great vendor partners, everything to really make it all work.
Everyone eats out, but people often miss how the food arrives on their plate. Every meal has a story of growers, suppliers, founders, and operators making it all happen. Welcome to Grounded. I'm Lauren Mitchell, and each week I will bring you conversation with the amazing people behind the brands you know and the ones you'll want to know. Grounded is powered by the Buyer's Edge platform, the leading food service digital procurement network, powered by data, software, and collaborative relationships. Let's get grounded. Today's guest is a passionate hospitality leader, board member, and Ironman triathlete. He's spent over 20 years growing BJ restaurants from around 20 locations to 200. Awesome story there. Today, he's the CEO of Stonefire Grill. David Youngberg, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to a fellow Southern Californian. We have much to talk about today. So much that we can relate to, too. I'm very excited to have this time. Thank you again for finding the time.
My pleasure.
All right. So let's dive in. Tell us about your path to leading a regional restaurant group such as Stonefire. How did you get started in the industry, and what drew you to Stonefire in the first place?
Well, starting in the industry, you got to back up like 40 years. I started my career, I guess you would call it career, in food service. I worked at McDonald's when I was, I think, 15 and a half. Back then, you could get a job then. And loved it. I mean, I loved the fast-paced environment, and just like the people were kind. It was a fun place to work. I enjoyed it. You know, everything was great. What you don't realize, so many of the little things that made that a good working environment, systems. There was everything had a place and everything was in its place. There was a procedure for, making a burger, or a quarter pounder, or French fries, or whatever it was. It was specificity on how you did it. And never really, you don't think about it when you're 16 and you're doing it, right? You're just learning and saying it. But as I grew in the business and in the industry, I realized how important it was that I was, like, my first experience in it was something that was 100% systems, and this is how you did it in order to produce the same burger, the same flavor, the same fries, the same, whatever it was. So it's weird as I look back on it, I'm like, okay, that defined me in this industry. Like, that defined how I made it. I wish that for a while I'd kept in touch with one of the managers there and the ownership group, the franchisees. I don't know where they are now, or they're still in the business, but Jim and Sandra Darling, I think, were their names. And they were in the restaurant like all the time. And they were always talking to people and always asking questions. And I just love that. And so again, for me in the business and in the industry and what I do, I felt like they were invested in their people. And I feel like that's where you are in this business, right? Where, I've said this a million times and I keep saying it. We are not in the food business serving people. We're in the people business serving food. So we have to be, we got to know what's going on. But yeah, that's kind of how I got my start, and then just really worked through college and restaurants and loved it. And honestly, didn't go to school to be a restaurateur. I went to school to go into like public administration. I wanted to run a city. And when I graduated college, it was like I got a job offer to go my career path, and I got a job offer to stay working in the restaurant that I was going to be a manager, and I chose the restaurant, and I never looked back because I loved it, and I'm so glad that I still do it. How I got drawn to Stonefire, I think at BJ's things were wonderful, and it was a great running company, and I worked with amazing people, and I was like probably on cloud nine as far as feeling like everything was working right. My boss, my coworkers, the company, everything was just going so well. And all of a sudden I got called to this opportunity at Stonefire Grill. The interesting part is I'd just been to a friend's house that was catered by Stonefire Grill, and I was a fan of the brand. At BJ's, we would cater Stonefire to some of our big events because they were really good at catering. And so I knew about the food. I knew a lot of things. And and it was just intriguing, but it was also exciting. And I felt like, why not? Why not see what's out there, and if it's a possibility, you know, I was blessed with being offered the job, and I'm here and living, kind of living my best life as far as I can, as far as I can go in this industry.
I love it. I love where you started with your story from McDonald's, 15 and a half years old. I think it's an excellent reminder to our listeners who are either in a leadership or manager role, who have the youth that report into them or are surrounded by them. They're so impressionable. And here you are, CEO of a company, and it's, 40 some odd years later. But that's what you almost define your leadership style by, is just that memory of having consistent quality food with a systematic approach, and you just keep it very simple for your employees so that they can execute every time. And we'll get into a little bit more about, what are some of the strategies that you involve in your role today. But that's an important one, and I love that you tie it all the way back to that age.
100%.
So vice president of operations with BJ's, you talked about that a little bit. What can you talk about in terms of taking a brand from 20 to 200? What were some of the, maybe even a challenge that you dealt with, or just a learning that you took away from having that high growth experience?
Well, number one, it's people. And if I were to say what was the challenge, there was a challenge at one point in time as the brand was growing. How do you go from 50 to 100, 100 to 150, 150 to 200? It's people. And there was a challenge at one point in time of not having enough people, the right developed people, trained, understanding in the role. And there was a momentum shift at one point in time that was, okay, if we're going to, if you build it, they will come, right? But first, in order to build it, you got to have people to run it so they can come. So it was that piece of getting people to understand the growth mindset and the growth mentality. And, I think, look, I tie that back to Stonefire right now. We're kind of on the precipice of, getting the business in line and designing an NRO prototype and having our menu in the right place. And paring it down to those things. And then really we've had this huge drive on people and development, and our general managers, do they have the right business acumen? Do they have the right mindset? Do they have the right development pieces? What are they shy of, and what can we help them? How can, where are their, we ran into this big piece with development where now we've got all of their reviews online. We do reviews, and then we do semi-annual reviews, and there is constant development. And it's like telling people every conversation that we have is development. So it's identifying where the strengths and the opportunities are in people, and then how we can augment the opportunities and augment their strength with maybe someone else. But it really is building the base right now of saying, okay, if we're going to build one, if we're going to build two, if we're going to build three, and when we're at 13 restaurants. So you build two and you're basically going up 20%, right? So you start thinking about that. And that's a piece that I flash back on. The growth plan at BJ's for years was 25%. So when you had 50 restaurants, you want to get, you kind of want to get a number of restaurants, right? And then you get to 100, and what is that? Now that's 25, right? So you're thinking 25 restaurants in a year, and how that growth kind of grows. So working with the team now at Stonefire, getting them to understand that, growing one restaurant, two restaurants, 4 restaurants, 8 restaurants, that it takes a tremendous amount. And bottom line, it takes people, and it takes good systems, and it takes good, supply chain. It takes great vendor partners, everything to really make it all work. So it's never ending.
Key development of people. Do you have a certain role with the company that's supporting that for Stonefire, or is that something that you're owning on behalf of the brand? Because development and training is a very hefty topic, and I know a lot of brands are figuring out solutions for it, but it is, like you said, it's one of the most important components to executing, and especially in a growth period. How do you speed up that process while maintaining brand culture and quality?
Right. I will tell you, as a small company, you're a small company, you have a small G&A budget. And, we are constantly serving our shareholders, not only our guests, but, and our stakeholders. So you think about how you add. The only things that we've added is operations. We've added people first people. So we added, we promoted a vice president of operations. We added 2 directors of operations, and then we hired a director of training and development. And to your point, it was interesting when we were hiring someone for the role. There was this massive inflow of resumes because people were letting those people go. Typically it's like training and marketing. When a company's scaling back, they start looking at the, I guess what they would consider non-essential. I would never, as I grew up in operations, I wasn't a finance person. I was an operations person. So I look at training and development as essential. A finance person might not. They might look at it as, well, people know what they're doing, so we don't need that person. But we needed it. And that was when getting that in place, kind of putting forth our initiative was, number one, people first, and number two, to be an employer of choice. And the only way you're going to get there is by having the right people to lead those teams. So yeah, we have a fantastic VP of Ops, and very people focused, and our director of training. She's amazing. She started out as a restaurant employee and a restaurant manager and a general manager, and then worked her way up in training and development. So she's very operations focused as well.
I love talking to CEOs and leaders because depending on their background, some have come from legal, some have come from finance, and many have come from operations, but you all share that commonality of placing the importance on training and operations because you understand it from being on the front lines of that. And I think it's such a powerful insight to have when you're leading a brand overall. All right, so let's talk about California because it is a very unique state to manage a restaurant chain in. Maybe talk to us about some of the things that to be, an obvious challenge to that market, and that just make it truly unique.
It's someone asked me, and I said it's like a fellow CEO in another state said, "What's it like running a restaurant in California?" And I go, "It's kind of like a UFC fight, except you're on the losing side of just getting punched, punched, kicked, knocked down." It is. I was born and raised in California. There's a part of me that maybe says I might live somewhere else, but it's so hard because this is such a beautiful state and it's such an iconic place. And with our restaurants being kind of centered in that LA, Orange County, Inland Empire area, it's just, it's amazing. It's where, millions and millions of people live. And the other piece is they have choices. You think about, what is it? Texas has more restaurants per capita per people than any other state. But I feel like now in California, there are restaurant brands everywhere. And every guest has a choice as to where they're going to open up their wallet and walk into a restaurant. And it's a challenge wanting to be the restaurant that you're asking people to walk by our competitors and don't go in there, come into our restaurant. And so it's a hard environment. It's a difficult environment to operate in. I won't get political, but I do think that it's not business friendly. The hard part is that it's modeled as that, but it's not. I know that there's a lot that they want to, kind of cut down on some of the regulations and the things that get pulled in. But if you think about in California, I recently did a presentation to our bank, kind of carrying through the last 2 years. And it was interesting going back and saying, oh, well, we got hit with the FAST Act where California upped the minimum wage to $20, in any restaurant brand over 60 restaurants. And we don't qualify for that, but our team members want to make and more money. And so we have to be competitive there. The beautiful part for us was we have a very generous tip share with our team members, and we also pay very competitive wages. And when I looked, I ran to HR and people and culture and said, what do all our people make? And they said, oh, they already all make over $20 an hour with the tip share. And I was like, okay, beautiful. And we really didn't lose a lot of team members. We also were already working the employer of choice pieces, and we'd been doing that since 23. So when we got to 24 and FAST Act came in, I believe we had a culture of people that believed that we cared about them and that we were doing things for them. So maybe the dollar an hour that they might be able to get from another place, they were gambling as to whether or not that culture, that workplace was going to give them the schedule that they wanted and so forth. And so, but that was a really big piece to deal with. And rising wages, our Los Angeles restaurants and our Pasadena restaurants have a higher minimum wage even than the state minimum wage. And then right after that, we got hit with the Prop 12 compliance. And that, for people who don't know what that is, that was the pork initiative. And, I think it was 80% of the farms in the United States weren't Prop 12 compliant. And it was interesting when I got voted in, I think it was 22. And I thought, nobody realizes what they're voting for. And when they put this in place and pork prices go through the roof, people are going to, wait a minute, what happened? And I'm like, I'm going to be the person that says, you voted for it. But when it finally went into place, it was very difficult. But I will tell you, having great supply chain partners, we were able to, and we read through the law. And I think the one thing, not a big fan of lawyers, so sorry, but they cost so much money. But a big fan of lawyers from the standpoint, we passed the initiative on to our lawyers and said, find a loophole. How can we, what can we do here, and how are we going to operate? And is there anything? And we were able to find that as long as we were having our ribs, certain things prepared prior to coming to us, we basically could continue with the farm. We were buying, roughly buy 250,000 pounds of ribs a year. So we were able to continue to use our vendor partner and our suppliers, and we were able to work around some things. So, but it's things like that, it's really difficult to, and the one thing I do love, health laws, they're, Los Angeles County, Orange County, Riverside County, they're some of the most strict counties in the country as far as health inspections, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the regulations have to be as heavy and as strong and as safe as possible, because it makes us operate at a higher level, right? It keeps us on our toes, and it says, we've got to do this right. We've got to do it right in order to serve great and safe and healthy food for our guests. And those are some of the things I think are great. But it's a incredibly tough operating environment, but it's also one of the best places ever to be.
It's a beautiful landscape. It's a very competitive market. It's very saturated, as you mentioned. So you really have to have an edge to stay healthy in those markets. And another thing that we didn't talk about, but as far as impacting growth, is the real estate, the cost of real estate and build out. And I just know that that's a huge roadblock for some that really have a certain prototype for where they want to be, and they just lack the space. Why don't we take a minute to just talk a little bit more about Stonefire? I know you guys are going through a rebrand too. Just for someone who hasn't been before, what can they expect about it? I know it's scratch, beautiful ingredients, heavy on the catering, family style. I love the story behind it. Maybe just give us the overview of the brand before we kind of go into some more questions.
Well, a very founder-driven brand, and the founders are still involved. I have regular conversations with them on where they think the brand is headed and what they'd like to see out of the brand. And it really was, it was founded on a restaurant that models the home. Birthday parties were always a family meal, celebrations, graduations, everything was always involved around the family. And our signature carrot cake, best carrot cake in the world. I mean, I'll challenge it against anybody's, but it was a family recipe, and every birthday, every celebration, there was carrot cake. So that became the dessert of choice at Stonefire Grill. So we have an amazing carrot cake. But yeah, really, the restaurants are designed around being friendly. And even though we're a fast casual brand, we have some larger dining rooms so that large families or parties, or most of our restaurants have patios that you can reserve. And again, the catering piece, we will, one of our taglines is we can serve 40 to 4,000. We complete probably a dozen, almost 20 events every year that we can serve up to 5,000 people. And we do it in less than an hour. So our catering team and our catering practices are fantastic. The food, mm, we're the majority, and more than 90% of our items are scratch made. There are some things that we do have brought in, our breadsticks, and we have a single partner that produces our breadsticks. We have a single baker that produces all of our rolls and our bread. And so certain things that we have to buy from outside, but every sauce is made from scratch. Every ingredient is cut up. We don't buy, all of our produce comes in fresh. All of our meats come in, and we season them. It's just it's made for sharing. It's wallet friendly, and it's healthy for you. And I think that's really what we're driving is with value out there. There's a tremendous amount of value out there, and not knocking it at all, but it's not always the healthiest alternatives for value. And being a person myself who's trying to be healthy, being a father, being a grandparent, it you want to make sure that we're serving healthy food for people, and we want to make sure that they have the ability to get healthy food at an affordable price. And I think for what we serve and the things that we do, and the quality of our product, I think we do a fantastic job at it.
As far as the quality of those ingredients, talk to us a little bit about your vendor partnerships. How how and when do you decide to make a change? Have there been some that have been there from the very beginning? I always like to ask too, maybe there's a specific decision filter in terms of how you go with a local supplier versus national. Of course, dairy being one of those that, normally the local leads. But talk to us a little bit about that, just vendor partnerships and how they've contributed to some of your success and growth, or just good stories there.
We've had, so the hardest part is I think relationships are important, and we do have some very long-term relationships at Stonefire. But when you're running a business, the relationship is important, but also the financial obligation and how that affects the brand is also incredibly important. So there's an incredible balancing act that myself and my team, my CFO and purchasing have to do when we're talking about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. I would tell you, we have taken two things recently from national to local, and one of them being our broadline provider. We were with a big national brand, and I said that we were a very, very small, in a very giant ocean, and I understood that and respected that. But we found a local vendor partner. Am I allowed to say names? Um, we started a relationship with Vitco Foods, which is located right here in Southern California, and Costas is an amazing person. He runs his business. He's entwined in everything. He's constantly talking to us and making sure that the relationship's good. It really changed. When you talk about like employer of choice initiatives, by getting a vendor partner that when we forgot something, that vendor partner is local and has vans that do nothing but run specials that can get that out to us. You want to talk about managers that are happy at, oh my goodness, I completely this. How can I get it? We got you. We'll send it out. Whereas before it was with the bigger national brand, it was, well, we don't really have any way of getting it to you. So either you can come pick it up and we'll call and drive, 30 miles to where the warehouse is, or, you're just gonna have to go without it. And it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does happen, it's nice to know that you have a partner. And I know that's just a small, tiny piece, but the going local and just having more access, more time, having better discussions on, hey, we can pivot this product to this supplier. I can start buying it from here. When we have some specialty products, it's easier for him to stock it on his shelves because he's, smaller warehouse, smaller, SKUs and all that kind of stuff. So it's been my experience moving that was incredible. The second one we did was our barbecue sauce. Our barbecue sauce was another thing that was made for us. It was made by a very large national brand. And as we were having supply issues, we were having delivery issues, we were having some recipe issues. And I said, come on, we can do this differently. we're a small brand. Let's find a place that can make it locally. And we actually found a vendor in local here in Southern California who's now producing our barbecue sauce.
So
Um,
cool.
Here's one piece as we're working through this and we're looking at the recipe and the recipe pops up. I'm staring at the recipe and what's the first ingredient? High fructose corn syrup. And it just hit me like a bat. I'm like, wow, hey, if we're going to make it ourselves, if we're going to have it made locally, can we remove that ingredient? Can we can we go with cane sugar? Can we do something to at least remove high fructose corn syrup? And honestly, the vendor was like, yes, it's going to be a little bit more money. But the truth was we were saving so much by going from the national to local that additional amount we were still saving considerable amount of money. Well, then it was, as we looked through the recipes, we're like, okay, so do we need that additive? Do we need this, preservative? Do we need this food coloring, dye, whatever it is? Not to say that, and look, I'm not a weirdo about all those. I recognize what's healthy and what's not healthy. And, we read we follow science, I would say, right? As far as what's the right thing to do and right thing to serve. But the one thing that we looked at was if we can manufacture and put together a more healthy barbecue sauce, can we do it? And will it have the same taste and will it have the same profile? And it's better for our guests. And we were able to reformulate it. And we're in our probably third revision of our recipe. We're testing it in about 4 restaurants right now. And we're getting guest feedback as to, well, maybe a little bit sweeter than the last one, maybe a little bit darker, maybe a little this, that. So we're tweaking it based on some of our guest comments. But the truth is, we now have a barbecue sauce that is much more healthy than the previous barbecue sauce. And in my mind, by removing high fructose corn syrup, granted, no one's drinking gallons of our barbecue sauce. At least I'd love it if they were, but I hope adding it to the pork or adding it to the tri-tip that we serve. But it's more healthy. And so I guess if that gives you a couple of indications on going from national to local and the ability to bid quickly and the ability to change quickly has really helped us out.
Well, I think just lifting the lids off the pots too and taking a look inside. I mean, like you said, the founders are still involved. It's a longstanding brand with solid history and roots, but at times, and I love that example where you bring something from national to local, there's obviously huge freight efficiencies there across a variety of items when you do so. But, that you kind of take a second look at things and question, how it's being done and why. And that's such a beautiful example. The produce partner or your distribution partner is another one I want to call out. I was at a lovely restaurant over the weekend and I asked them who they use for produce and he answered, quickly and he said, and do you know why? And I said, why? And he said, because they deliver on Sundays and we need Sundays. That was his reason. Like he probably has 15 to choose from in the Orange County area, but that flexibility and support is, always going to be what chef prefers. And I thought kudos to that distribution partner. 'Cause literally they have that business because they're still operating on a Sunday and they need it. And then being in catering, I mean, your PARs fluctuate all the time. It's just based on, that's an innate challenge of just being in the catering business. You never know, when an order is going to come in. And so love those examples.
Well, that's where technology, when you talk about catering, because with technology, it's really helped us to understand our catering. We put some good systems in place to be able to, probably about 70% of our catering comes in 14 days in advance, but you have to think about 30% of that business still comes in between 6 and 72 hours. So to your point, the ability of someone calls up and says, I need a catering for 100 people and I want to serve, tri-tip and salmon, and it's going to come out of one restaurant. And we might not, again, we keep, enough, our products come in fresh. So we only keep enough in there to last us for a couple of days before we get more products. So technology has helped us to understand our business a little bit better and how to order right and get it so that, we don't have to be screaming for something on a day that we don't normally get a delivery on.
Technology. So you brought it up. You talked about it in terms of supporting maybe volume forecasting or PARs. Any other areas that you've utilized just because you dip into all departments and categories of restaurant management that stand out to you as far as what technology has allowed you to do that has been an improvement?
We have done some incredible work on technology, I think, over the past couple of years. And I'm sure you know, and anyone who's listening knows that the technology world changes by the day, right? Or by the half day or whatever it is. I mean, it's ever changing. But um, we really focused on what are the things that we needed. One of the things that we did when I first came on board was bringing a guest platform to where we were really understanding our reviews and looking at our guest scores and being able to segment that. And then we most recently did a pilot between a couple of different companies. We just recently chose to go with Ovation. Um, and that is, I love the platform. It's incredibly simple. It's app based. I want to say probably the one of the number one reasons that we went to using it is our managers can interact with guests in a moment. So it's SMS based. So a guest sends, they get a review, a QR code, and they get the ability to type something in. And when they do it, it immediately goes to our restaurants on a tablet. And if a review comes in, they can see it right away. We recently did our GM summit, and I highlighted it for our general managers and showed that a guest had an issue, something was left off their order. They responded in the review. 3 minutes later, the manager responded to them, and we used one of our delivery vans to take the missing product out to the guest. But how fast that we can interact with using our old guest platform, we were about 1.5 to 2 days of responding to a guest. And they say that 24 hours is the target. I kind of feel like that you're beyond that at that point in time. Through the pilot innovation that we did with our restaurants, our response time was 2.5 hours. So for a guest to say this was right, and we're able to respond back and say, thank you so much, or this was not right. Oh my goodness, we're so sorry. What can we do to fix it? And be able to do that within 2 hours, you're getting them at that moment. And to me, it's amazing because I see every single one. My wife laughs because my phone will my phone will ding like 30 times and there are reviews coming in, and I'm constantly picking up my phone and reading the review and seeing and waiting for the manager to respond. And are they going to say it's just, I will tell you, the guests that respond back with, I don't know, I've seen 1,000 OMGs. Oh my God, I cannot believe that you responded to me within 10 minutes or 15 minutes or within a half hour. It's really been amazing. So quite honestly, that pilot, we've chosen to use them. We're going to roll it out company-wide, but we went from getting an average and this is crazy, but we went for 3 restaurants individually. We were getting around 100 reviews a month per restaurant. We averaged 1,900 per restaurant in the pilot time.
Wow.
Insane. The amount of people that are responding back to us. And I love it because you're hearing what's right. You're hearing what's wrong. You're hearing what they like. You're hearing what they would like to see differently. And it's giving us real-time ability to interact with our guests. And so that, from a technology standpoint, absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, it puts the accountability back on your team too when they know it's actionable criteria. It increases the fixes within real time. So if it's the quality of a grape tomato and you're hearing that in real time, you check the grape tomatoes. I mean, that is incredible. I love that you brought that up. What a wonderful quality to Stonefire too, that the CEO is actually receiving guest feedback on your cell phone. You're such an ops guy. I can't even handle it.
I cannot shake myself of it. I apologize to my ops team all the time because I just insert myself into, what they're kind of working on. But I have incredible trust for my team. But I definitely, as an ops person, I've been trained over 20 plus years of FOMO. There's just a fear of missing out on something that you should know that you don't know. So yeah, I am a little, I do my best. I think but my team definitely keeps me grounded. If I'm stepping over a line, they have no problem, telling me, I think, and I can't remember the author that said this, but, it was, a good leader needs challenge partners. And you need on an executive level, people who are willing to challenge you and step up and say, I don't like what you're doing, or I think this is the wrong thing, or I want you to consider doing it this way. And so I really value, and I've really driven upon my team that I need challenge partners. I need someone that if they feel I'm going in the wrong direction, that someone stands up and says, hey, can we take a time out? Let's talk this through. And so I do think in that regard, when I say that, my team's really good. If I'm stepping over the line, they'll put me back in my place.
Challenge partners, that's a good one. Okay, my one of the topics that I get to talk about with you is not typical for most guests, and what makes you special is you're an athlete. And I'm a firm believer that fitness provides an edge in leadership. I think it improves energy, time management, decision making. I could go on and on. So I would love for you to describe, first of all, how you find the time, given that you're managing a Southern California restaurant chain, and all the challenges that come with it. And what parallels you might see between, your routine and how it supports you and your work.
Wow, we can probably talk hours on the athlete side, and I preface that by saying I'm a pseudo athlete. I'm not an elite one, but I do love it, and I do love fitness, and I do love triathlons, and I do believe that it has changed me. You talk about time, and you know this because when you're training for a long endurance event, these are not you can't it's not a 45-minute hit workout that you're doing, right? I'm hopping on a bike and I'm going to ride for 6.5 hours. And that is also going to include the need for probably a 2-hour nap at some point in time, not to mention stretching later on in the day or whatever the case may be. And so finding the time and being able to schedule your time. I do think that I was lucky. I didn't really get into triathlons, and especially Ironman triathlons, until all my kids were grown and out of the house. I think when I did my first Ironman, my youngest daughter was 17. So she had her life, she was on her own. And so I had the time. I have friends that want to do it and they have little kids. And I'm like, yeah, you probably want to hold off on that because I don't think your wife's going to be okay when you say, I've got to go on a 6.5 hour bike ride on a weekend, or I got to then the next day, I got to go do a 4-hour run. Or something like that. So I do think that, but what it does is it forces you to be succinct with your schedule and forces you to be succinct with your time, and how how you segment your day. And I think I love this current world and evolution as we move into a broader understanding of fitness, of sleep, of health, of food, of protein, of everything. How do we do it? And you have to sleep, right? So I mean, I wear one of the rings that tracks my sleep, and I'm constantly looking that I get good sleep, and making sure that you're scheduling that in. But I think I have learned that getting up early in the morning, that 4:30 wake up time and getting that workout in. And then really, I wasn't always that person. I was more of maybe an afternoon, middle of the day. I have my, I have my tri bike on a trainer in my office. And so in the middle of the afternoon, if I needed to hop on and put in a half hour, I could, just kind of take that time. But I have found that I'm better. I'm sharper. I'm more in the game when I'm getting up early, getting that workout in, grabbing some food and some protein in your body, and a little, then, definitely caffeine, right? Got to get the coffee in, and then boom, you're off and running, and it goes. But I do think that there is that weighs a tremendous amount to kind of prioritizing your time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so many people, their first question is, gosh, I'm concerned because I already am tired during the day. I can't imagine getting up earlier. And my answer every single time is you would be surprised. It's actually an energy giver. Even if you're taking an hour away from your sleep, you're actually infusing additional energy into your day as a result of it. It is such an awesome combination. And then, just the conversations that you can strike with people who wind up being, I call them undercover athletes. When I've gone on some grower tours, these guys have to show up at 4 a.m. in the processing plant, and they'll show me their phone and be like, I still did my 200 steps today at home. And I'm like, we always make time for it. I mean, the guy probably had to get up at 2:30. But once you start to understand the benefits and you feel the results of it, and the energy that it gives you, it is so fun for me to hear people who find the wedges in their day to put it, bike in the office or a walking pad underneath their desk. I just love it.
You turned me on to the podcast with Rich Roll with Ethan Suplee. And I have to tell you, thank you, number one, because it was incredible to listen to. But my takeaway from that is something that Ethan talked about in the move from his, into sobriety, into health, and to losing 300 pounds was momentum. And I just keyed in on that word because isn't that true? The momentum that carries us through the day. And I do think you wake up early with a positive mindset. You're going to get an accomplishment in. You're going to get that work. I don't care if it's, 10 jumping jacks. If that's what will get you going for the day, then do it. If you need to do a 45-minute HIIT workout, if you need to go run 2 miles, no matter what it is, it doesn't matter. Get up, walk around the house, but it's that momentum, the positive energy of waking up, getting your day started, starting to focus on what's next, and getting that heart rate up, getting your brain function going, getting your eyes exposed to light and sunlight, and just kind of feeling it. And then it's that momentum. And I love that word and how he talked about it. And I think about it a lot now because everything we do, there's either positive momentum or negative momentum, right? And so, or I guess lack of momentum is what you'd think. But the momentum piece to me was really important of how do you drive forward every day? And there's a lot that goes on in the day. And I think if you start out your day right, you get your brain right, you calm your system down, get your heart rate up, and then, for the rest of the day, I think that you can really stay focused.
Yeah, for our listeners, I will definitely link that episode in the show notes. It was on the Rich Roll podcast, and it's a very powerful episode from one of the actors on Boy Meets World that so many of us grew up with. So I'll link that up there. All right. Well, as we get ready to wrap here, I want to give listeners a chance to hear from you about what's exciting about Stonefire this year, what's firing you up as you look forward with the brand and in the direction that it's headed in the next year to 3 years.
Well, we did this year, 2025, we celebrated our 25th anniversary. So the brand is actually 25 years old. And we've been doing a lot of cool things. Every 25th of the month, we've been doing something. So probably the most fun the most fun we had, but also the most the hardest day for our team members was we rolled back our prices for one day. We rolled back our menu to 2,000. We're roughly about a 50 to 60% drop in prices. And we did that. And our guests loved it, but we've done things throughout the year. We gave out some cool pint glasses, and most recently the 25th of the month actually aligned with National Pepperoni Pizza Day. So we really good promotion where we did half off pepperoni pizzas. So we've been doing some fun things just to really, and we've been tying it to our loyalty program because we love having a loyalty rewards program, and it's a way to engage with our guests, and it's a way to kind of give back to them. So we've been tying a lot of that in with loyalty rewards. So we've got a couple of fun things coming up towards the end of the year. I will say we have 2 big days. One is National Breadstick Day. Our breadsticks are amazing. They're incredible. And so National Breadstick Day is coming up. So we're going to be doing something fun there. And then one of the things, so we have a day that we called Mashed Potato Wednesday. So the day before Thanksgiving, we sell about 4 tons of mashed potatoes. So we sell pans. Our garlic mashed potatoes are a signature item. And they're based, we peel the potatoes in house, we cook them in house, we add, salt, pepper, garlic, a little bit of cheddar cheese, sour cream and milk to our mashed potatoes. So but everything's done right here in-house. And on the day before Thanksgiving, we get reservations. People use us for their mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving. So it's one of our biggest days. Our wonderful marketing department went, and I guess you go to, you try to have it your day. So we are now registered as the day before Thanksgiving every year is National Garlic Mashed Potato Day. And we were the one, Stonefire Grill was the one that established that. So we're really excited about our, National Garlic Mashed Potato Day and doing that. So it's a huge day for us. It's really exciting. We just rolled out or we're in the process of rolling out our new menu, a new fall menu, and we're incorporating, spicy food is a big popular thing. And so we added a banh mi pizza and a Nashville hot chicken pizza to our lineup. And those are pretty tasty. We're bringing shrimp back to the menu as an additional protein. We're adding, we have a carrot cake and a cheesecake, and then cookies and brownies. But our carrot cake and our cheesecake are made from scratch in-house, and they're really wonderful. But we wanted to add to that portfolio. So we are actually taking our breadsticks and we're cutting them up into pieces. We're baking them off quickly. We're tossing them in the cream cheese frosting that we use for our carrot cake. And then we're coating them with cinnamon and then serving them with a side of cream cheese frosting. And we're calling them Cinnadunks. So they're little cinnamon pieces of heaven that are just amazing. And the hilarious part is our team members have said, we've been doing that for years. Like when we want to do something fun for our, this is what we do, but we're actually now making it part of the menu. And so it's our new dessert, and we're adding it to the menu coming up in a couple of weeks. So we're really excited about that.
I love hearing when brands flip a current item on its head. And I mean, that's a great use of your breadsticks. That sounds so fun. Congrats. I'm so happy for you guys. What a lovely brand. I have enjoyed so many pieces of this, the rolling back prices, just the little ways that you guys have incorporated that 25. Very cool to hear. I'm sure some have gotten some ideas for their brands as well. I want to take a minute and just make sure those that are listening can reach out to you if they have a question just based on your experience or just want to make a connection. Where can people get a hold of you?
You can email me. My email, I don't mind. My email is david.youngberg@stonefiregrill.com. You can reach out to me find me on Instagram, and you'll find a bunch of, probably like you, a lot of biking and cycling and running and food pictures, right? So, yeah. And then our website is www.stonefiregrill.com. And we also have a sister restaurant. We have a one-off full service restaurant called Rattler's Barbecue, and that's at rattlersbarbecue.com. So, yeah.
We'll link up those in the show notes as well. I imagine they can also write a review. That's a great way to get a hold of you too.
Yes, they could.
Awesome. We'll have to do another show just on the barbecue brand alone. We didn't get a chance to cover that today, but David, thank you so much for your time. I'm so appreciative. A lot out of this conversation. You are a wonderful leader, and it's just an awesome brand in Southern California. Very, very happy for you guys.
I appreciate the time. It's my pleasure.
All right. And for our listeners, please share this episode with someone that you know is in the Southern California area. It will be released before Thanksgiving, so you know where to get your mashed potatoes from now. See you next time.
That's a wrap on this episode of Grounded. We've covered a lot of ground as we explored what it really takes to run food service behind the scenes. For show notes, highlights, and our latest market insights, visit us at groundedonthepod.com. Grounded is powered by the Buyer's Edge platform, delivering smarter solutions, greater efficiency, and real savings through connected tech, powerful data, and industry expertise. For more information and to get a personal demo of the Buyer's Edge platform, email me at lauren.mitchell@producealliance.com. And if you liked what you heard, subscribe so you don't miss an episode.